So here we're going to look at the adaptive, or sometimes called the acquired immune system. There's a very precise sequence of steps that goes on, and the key part here is we need to have the immune system remembering and recognizing and acting in a very specific manner through this process or branch of the immune system. If you remember, the innate immune system is the other one that you're born with and can be thought of as the other branch of the immune system. So looking specifically at the acquired immune system, we may have seen this image before relating to a hormone binding and having a response that occurs, but a very similar process that goes with the acquired immune system, or again, the adaptive immune system. The first part is we need to have a very specific recognition of the foreign substances that occurs through the proteins on the cell surface. This acts to immobilize, neutralize, or destroy them. Then we want to amplify the inflammatory response and activate a complement. So what's happening is once we have that binding occurring, we want to destroy that specific foreign invader, but we want to activate a bunch of other cellular responses to help increase the body's response to this foreign invader. And this helps the entire body maintain high health, because once one becomes infected, the body's immune system is alerted, and then this can be spread throughout. So the acquired immune system attacking the virus has three main components to it. The first one is an antigen-specific. So here's our antigens. These antigens are a molecule that provokes a specific immune response. It's specific to an antibody. So the antigen is the specific molecule that is initiating this immune response. Now, in acquired immune system, this is a systemic process, which means it's not restricted by any region in the body, and this is an example of a plant. But we talked about systemic insecticides or systemic products that can go through the plant. Same concept applies to the human body. Not restricted by anywhere, it can travel within the body. And the third component to the acquired or adaptive immune system is the fact that it has memory. It become educated cells that remain after the invader is gone. It remembers and is able to recognize certain pathogens. The acquired immune system, it's two separate overlapping arms. One are B cells, and they're called the humoral immunity for body fluid, and they're thought of, I attack invaders outside the cells. And then T cells, which is called cellular immunity, and I attack infected cells. So again, two different components, both performing under the same immune system, but have different and separate overlapping arms there. It is the most complex and slowest to respond, our acquired immune system, because it has to activate cells for each new invader or antigen. On first exposure, it takes about 10 days to reach peak levels. So this is more of a long-term effect. It's not an immediate. There is a little bit of a delay in this recognition process. Antigens is a macromolecule that reacts with a component of the immune system. So here's an example of an antigen. The figure above here shows the entire structure of an antigen, and the different structures here, projecting from it, the different shapes, and again they're over-exaggerated in this image, represent potential epitopes. So a given antigen may contain several motifs, which are recognized by immune cells, and each motif has an epitope. So again, a little over-exaggeration with different colors and shapes, but the key part, as we learned with proteins, is shape is very important for recognition. And we're seeing that also, that theme being continued with the immune system. So the antigen binding site is different in T and B cells. So a T cell receptor spans the membrane and projects variable binding regions into the extracellular space, binds to process antigens via MHC. Major histone complex here. Now our B cells look very different on just a quick comparison. This one has a branched appearance, and this one has a single appearance. Well, our B cell receptors are embedded in the membranes of the B cells and bind to their variety of antigens through their variable regions. The signal transduction region transfers the signal into the cell. So you can see this one goes completely through and has an intercellular domain. This one does not. This one does have the branched variable regions, and this one has a single variable region. They both have antigen binding sites, here and here, but the T cells only have one, the B cells have two. Think of B's having two bumps, and T's having one line to help you remember those. B cells are catching invaders in body fluids. So what they do is they originate in the bone marrow. So B cells. To help you remember the name, you can think of B standing for where they mature is in bone marrow. Remember, our bone marrow is producing our red, white, and blood cells, and also our platelets, interacting with that lymphatic system. So those B cells originate and they mature in that bone marrow. So again, B cells, you can think of bone marrow. They circulate in the blood and the lymph, and they are responsible for catching invaders in the body. So here's our B cell. We see through binding receptors here with our helper T cell, which we'll go over in another lecture. We're noticing we're producing memory B cells for the longer term, and then plasma cells here with antibodies strewn about. B cells are important for recognition, so they want to see identification, and this is why the MHC is part of the receptor used for that. So the peripherate plasma cells produce antibodies, you see here, and our memory cells provide quick response on re-exposure. So while initially it might be a slow process, upon re-exposure is where that quicker response is occurring. And the memory cells, so they're holding on for the long term. Lastly, our T cells are destroying infected cells, and they are present and mature in the thalamus here. So a way to help you remember that is they originate in the bone marrow, but they mature in the thalamus. So T cells, thalamus, T and T connect. They develop the ability to identify foreign agents by antigens presented on the cell surface. So we see our antigen presenting complex here, we have our recognition site, and we have our T cells being involved in destroying infected cells, which are very important to the proper functioning of the immune system.